I'm excited about this new concept that we have of doing a shrink view of different films.
I'm looking forward to now having our own show, Shrink to Shrink, where we get to have some fun and talk about the psych aspects of the movies.
So, well, this week we got on this show, we're talking about Gone Girl.
And what's the point of being together if you're not the happiest? But Nick got lazy. He became someone I did not agree to marry. He actually expected me to love him unconditionally. Then he dragged me, penniless, to the navel of this great country and found himself a newer, younger, bouncier, cool girl. You think I'd let him destroy me and end up happier than ever? No fucking way. He doesn't get to win.
Okay, I just got chills.
Okay, there are so many good scenes in this movie. That was another great one. It's what she created. She forged the man of her dreams. I don't know about you, but I talk with people so much about, like, you can't marry potential, don't date potential.
As we dive into the psychological things that happen in movies and use them to talk about how it impacts our life and our relationships. And
so we're going to do this once a month.
Plan to release it on the last day of each month.
Welcome to Shrink, a psych view on the films with Dr. Colleen Mullen and Courtney Calkins, bringing lessons learned from the big screen into our own lives.
And this is Courtney Calkins, and incoming, it's about time you got here, Colleen. Come on in.
Courtney, I can get here as soon as I can. That's it.
I don't know.
Here I am.
It feels, I don't want to make stereotypes right out the gate, but, I'll just say this. My wife usually takes longer than me to get ready to leave the house. So, I'm not saying it's true for all women.
Here's what I tell my friends. Like, if this is a work thing, they know I'm going to be there on time, but I'm late to every social thing. And this is kind of social for me. So
yeah, exactly. This is the fun part.
But here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And we have an interesting kind of, I guess it attacks male-female roles movie. And I enjoyed it. Amy Schumer's Trainwreck. I mean, it had things to say. What was your quick take on the movie before we actually get into diving deeper?
Yeah, I had friends tell me beforehand. They said, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be the best movie. It's so funny." And I don't know. I've done a lot of dating in my life, so I related to some of the stuff that was going on. Mm-hmm. I did think certain parts were pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was surprising how much there's going to be for us to talk about regarding relationships and how siblings interact and all sorts of things that we want to do with this show. So for me, it met all the marks.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I really, really like about comedies. Is they talk about the human condition in a funny way. I mean, most of the comedians I like, they don't tell any jokes. It's all social commentary. I mean, Louis C.K., Chris Rock, everybody does that. I mean, even Carlin.
Well, the Seinfeld show was just all about life. It wasn't really jokes. It was just stories about life, and isn't a Curb Your Enthusiasm, same kind of stuff. Yeah. So
this is our first comedy that we've actually shrinked up here, shrink wrapped. And, it was, I liked that it said what it said. Sometimes I always wonder about those comic writers. I'm like, do they know the psychological principles that they're expressing right now? They're demonstrating it right here on film. So, or do you have to know that stuff to present it? Or are you just really presenting how people are and not really caring about why? I
think comedy writers, when they hit the mark, are really smart. I mean, you have to be to get it, because to make a mass amount of people chuckle at something takes somebody who really knows the dynamics they're writing about.
Yeah, and that's why I think Amy Schumer is she's definitely one of our modern day comedians.
Right.
She's got a lot to say about how things are. If you take her, and you and I were just talking about this, if you take her character and make it a male, it's not nearly as tolerable. So.
Well, when we get into it, right, I mean, there's so many things that would be stereotypical, like through the 90s, like movies that we expected to see in guy roles and male roles, and to see her doing it, she kind of flipped the tables on that. And it was fun because I think a lot of women relate to some of the conversations she had with her girlfriend.
So you'll have to enlighten me with that. I don't do that.
And I think guys, it's probably more for guys going, oh, like, do women really talk like that? Sometimes we do.
I think we have one of those.
Especially
clips.
in the single world, they do.
All right. Well, you're going to have to tell me more about that.
We'll see.
Okay. All right. So where did she get her values? They lay it out right at the beginning with her dad, and he'll explain that he's going through his divorce right then, and he's explaining to his two daughters, what happened, and he has an interesting way of putting it.
Girls, your mother and I are getting divorced. Don't cry. I know you're upset. I know you're confused. I don't know what your mother told you, but let me explain it from my side in terms you can understand. You got your doll, right? You got your doll there.
Yeah.
You got your doll. You like your doll, right?
Yes.
You love your doll.
Yes.
Yes. You love the doll. But what if I told you that was the only doll you were allowed to play with the rest of your life? How would you feel?
Sad.
You'd feel sad. Of course, because there's a lot of other dolls on your shelves. And if you play with the other dolls, you can't have that doll anymore. Even though that doll doesn't really want to play with you at this point. You're both living a lie. There's other dolls you like, and they're making new dolls every year. You want a stewardess doll?
Yeah.
What about a slightly overweight cocktail waitress doll?
Yeah.
What about a doll who happens to be best friends with your main doll?
Yeah.
It could happen, right?
Yeah.
What about a doll you only play with one day and never see again?
Yeah.
What about a doll where your friend's playing with a doll and he needs you to, kind of man up with the other doll? You don't even want to play with that doll, but you do it because your friend's playing with that doll. You don't want to sit there and leave the other doll unattended.
Yeah.
So that's why me and Mom are getting divorced. Monogamy isn't realistic.
Monogamy isn't realistic.
Again.
Monogamy isn't realistic.
Again.
Okay, so Courtney, we're both sitting here cracking up listening to that
My eyes
scene.
are watering.
And that is how the movie opens.
Yeah.
I mean, so I take it back. I forgot. There were some really
gosh.
funny scenes in this movie. And
Yeah.
that one's one of the funniest. Like, I mean, and when you talk about comedy writers, that's brilliant. I think even as a marriage therapist or relationship therapist, like, that's a great analogy.
Of course it is.
For explaining how things happen sometimes.
Well, and it's, I think it's a cultural value that we have to have monogamy for life, right? I mean,
absolutely, and very much USA kind of culture. Because certainly there's European cultures that don't necessarily subscribe to that, or sometimes they tolerate relationships on the side a little differently.
Right.
But where I thought this scene was great for also is that, because what happens is, so Amy grows up. So that's the first scene of the movie. These two little girls hearing from their dad about how they are going to, how come mom and dad are getting divorced. And then they grow up is the next scene. And Amy is this very sexually free woman who's into casual sex. And she's probably in her early 30s, late 20s, that kind of thing. And I just thought, no matter how our parents choose to live, whether we agree with it or not, or we have strong opinions or not, somehow we inevitably morph into some aspect of that, even if we're not trying to, like if our parent like this, like she turns out to be very casually or free with her sexuality.
Free with everything, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversations that she has with people is not just her sexuality, it's her brashness.
Right. She is just straightforward, which is how the dad's personality is. He just said it like it was. So she does that. She does what she wants. She doesn't play other people's games, or at least she tries not to.
Yeah.
And I think, we all have examples. And if our parents are that way, we'll be like that. I mean, sometimes and then her sister shows the opposite of that, which if we have a couple of siblings, kids latch on to different parents. Like you have two kids, right?
Right.
So,
and I would say there's one of them runs more in sync with me on certain things, right? And another one runs more in sync with my wife on certain things. And then there are for an example, like just kind of like temperament, right? Like my temperament's like, probably more like Seth, definitely like Seth. So, he and I have this, we're kind of in sync. It's not like I love him more unless he's listening, and then I do love him more. Yeah, and then, but you know what I mean. And then my other son likes more to do the activities with me. So they pair up differently with my wife. So yeah, we definitely Or
Right. And as they grow up and they get into relationships as adults, they're going to use your marriage as a model for their relationship.
Yeah.
So that's going to be on its best day, on its worst day.
Right.
It seems like you guys have a lot of best days, so that's a good thing.
they're both teenagers, so I think 13 and 14 really is where it starts to go bad.
Right, but the relationship you have with your wife that you're setting the example as.
Yeah. Oh, that. Oh, that. Yeah.
That's the important part. You can get through the teenage years.
I think that they don't really pay attention, but I know they do. You know what I mean? It's like I don't see them taking any notes, at least. No,
and that's the thing, we don't. But inevitably, somehow we morph into some aspect of our parents' relationship, the best and the worst of it sometimes, or we attract that.
Right.
If I see people all the time, one of their parents cheated on the other one, and inevitably they find themselves at some point in their relationship paired up with someone who cheated on them, or they're totally afraid all the time that someone will cheat on them, but then when we have, just so people know, like when you have nice, healthy examples of marriage or long-term relationships,
mostly healthy.
You grow into that as well, most likely. You learn that. You learn from example, and your best example is what you grow up with in your home.
It's almost like it's the level of trauma and drama. You know what I mean? If you got a lot of drama, it doesn't really matter what the drama is.
Yeah.
It all kind of equals the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like
my favorite stuff, the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So you need to be coached through chaos sometimes.
That's right.
Because life is chaotic, and people get used to whether it's alcoholism or spousal abuse or drugs or overspending. You know what I mean? That level of chaos all once kinds of meets at the same level. It does, so with someone that you end up dating and seems to have a different but actually similar history.
Right, your own familiar nutty that you attract.
So that's why every time I look at my wife and go, man, she's really kind of off her rocker, I'm like, oh, I'm about that much off my rocker too.
Maybe your mom was.
Yeah. So we're both tilted the same direction. At 43 degrees or whatever we are, but we're tilted differently. So and I just got to say, before we jump on, because we got a lot of clips from this movie.
Yes.
But monogamy is a decision that we made. You know what I mean? And that's when he's saying monogamy isn't realistic. I thought it was funny that in the notes you wrote monotony isn't realistic.
That's right. My own Freudian slip when I sent you those notes on the show. I wrote monotony isn't realistic. And so
which
that
goes
was at
back
midnight sitting by myself. So,
crying.
Crying.
Actually, I probably did cry during this movie, but it was because I was laughing so hard.
I was thinking he had a point.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to how our first podcast together, we talked about having marriage contracts. It was my wacky idea to say, hey, we should have, 5 years. And that's kind of just another commentary on people say, oh, they're not monogamous. Well, no, you're monogamous when you choose to be monogamous.
That's right. And you know what? As far as that goes, when we talk culture, and you say these marriage contracts, and I remember that. And people do. They might not be spelled out. Some people do, but most of the time, people have unspoken contracts and relationships as what's okay and what's not. Mm-hmm. And certainly there are couples like just because there's a lot of people in the United States that think that monogamy is what you should be doing. There's a lot of people that don't live by the should be's, and they live by what they agree to do.
Yeah, let's not talk about how people believe. Let's talk about how people behave. Yeah. Right? Let's look at the numbers, and as for all of what we say.
Oh, yeah, right.
But we don't believe that way if you just look at the numbers.
Statistics.
Right. It's just serial monogamy.
Right.
And we just, maybe that should just be okay. Because everybody puts weight on it that, you have a marriage, didn't make it.
Well, or even the fantasy idea that everybody has one soulmate. I'm like, really? Out of all the people in the world, you only have one person and they happen to be in the same country as you, and you're going to find them in the same state that you live in?
Mine was born in Georgia while I was in California. I just never met her. So it's my job to go looking, right? I just got to go find this one person that was made for me.
Right. That's right. Out of all these billions of people.
Right.
One
or two or three, or a stewardess, or a slightly overweight cocktail one. Depends. You got to find your right.
Hey, it depends on what your soul needs then at that moment to make a soulmate.
That was a hilarious thing, the way he just took it. All right. But we're not commentating on the comedy of it, or the relationships and the psych aspect. So on to number 2, what I have labeled as memory. Okay, these are the sisters going through the boxes of dad's stuff because he is moved into a nursing home. And so they're going through his house, boxing up the things that, Dad left, because most of the time people are not in a state where they're going to be packing their boxes when they do that. So they're doing it. And they have different thoughts about whether they should keep the different things, and showing what you were just talking about, the two different personality styles of the sisters.
Whoa.
Moving
Okay,
on.
let's just...
Amy, don't touch it.
These are his memories.
No, don't do that.
Wallet. He needs his wallet.
We've got so much stuff to go through. Please stop.
Oh, he loves that poster. I know. Kimberly, stop it. Stop it, girl. Come on. Not cool, girl.
That felt good.
That's not right.
Alaska.
No, don't throw away his snow globes. These are his memories. He got one of these everywhere he went.
Does he have one for every one of our teachers? I don't see them.
He didn't f*** all of our teachers.
Fucked all of my teachers.
No, he never f***ed Mr. Hecht. I did.
It's comedy goes so fast, and when you get to go back and just listen to it, it becomes sharper. I picture them writing it. These are different opinions about what we should save, from someone's whole life.
Right, and what means something, and so because something meant something to the person that we loved when they passed, some of us think we should go and hold on to it, and like these two sisters show, other times they think they can't be bothered. One thinks, I'm going to tear up the dad's favorite poster, and the other one kind of wants to bring it over to him at the nursing home.
Right.
So, I don't know, do you have siblings, Courtney?
Yes, I have a sister.
Okay.
She's older than I am. She's like 4 or 5 years.
Okay, and I've got 4 siblings, and we are all, I know we've already gone through this with our father passing, and, I know that one of my brothers really wants to go through some stuff, and at this point, it feels like, why, they're just things.
Right.
There's a lot of ways that people go through grief, and they are starting the grieving process, but when they put their father in this nursing home, and we should say that, and the whole joke is that it's not a nursing home, but it's an assisted living facility. Right. But, when people start going through that, and you have to put your parents in a home, that the end is coming at some point. Right. When your parent can't live on their own anymore, you start the grieving process. Right. Because they're no longer the big, strong parent that is, whether it's your mother or father, it's not the parent that you knew them to be, because they now need someone to take care of them, and they are supposed to be the caretaker. Yeah. And you hope that it doesn't go too long. I have my great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. No, my grandmother. She's 97, 98. Wow. She's been at home for 25 years, and her mind's starting to go. It's she doesn't even remember exactly who you are. And it's there goes there. It's almost like there's a balloon running out of air. It's not so much them left anymore. And that's not like you avoid it, but it's hard to watch. That's an interesting way to put it about the balloon. But man, 97 and to only start losing her cognitive abilities, that's pretty sharp. And and I can't help but think, wow, that's a good machine she was born with. I think the body's a good machine. And some of them the engines run along longer than others. She didn't even know what gluten-free was. And so. Didn't need to. Didn't need to. Is it vegan? What's a vegan? So no, it's just good genes. So maybe I'll follow in her footsteps. So yeah, it's always emotional when you're going through that stuff, and this is kind of just a setup for what is our next step, which is memorabilia. So a very quick one, but here's another one.
You got my Met stuff?
Yeah.
Amy.
I'll bring it by.
Amy, look at me. Amy.
Kim made me throw a lot of it away.
Kim made you your little sister.
She's mean as a dog.
Jesus.
I've tried. I'm so sorry.
What do I care? It's all memorabilia anyway. I'm memorabilia at this point.
Don't say that.
When I saw that scene, I thought, that's a pretty heavy-duty scene in a short little clip. When he says, I'm memorabilia at this point, that's a sad place to be, but that's exactly what we were just talking about, is that even the parents that know that, their life is no longer theirs. And he was going through MS. He was young. This was not a 90-year-old person going into a home. This was a guy in his 50s, early 60s, getting put in a home because he had MS and his body couldn't help him anymore.
And that's clear again where she got the brashness.
Yes.
It's just, I mean, he speaks it the way he sees it, and sometimes that's refreshing. Just when you run into somebody like that, and because I think I tweeted it the other day, or I said something that it's like, I express my opinion honestly, and I hope that the people who disagree with me will do the same. Because it's not like I'm married to my opinion, but I'm looking to sharpen it. And if I need to sharpen it to have a different opinion, then let's have a discussion about it.
Well, and I think it's good to be unapologetic about your opinion and also respectful of other people's
100%.
Opinions. Yeah. So you can be, the characters are New Yorkers. And of course, like I'm a New Yorker, by the first 30 years of my life. And it's very typical that people just have this no nonsense attitude. And I think that goes everywhere. I don't think it's typically New York, but they kind of in the movies like to glamorize that as New York attitude.
I would say there's you could have a New York attitude with a California smoothness, meaning that you could say it, but when I think of a New Yorker speaking their mind, I don't think about it coming across nice.
Well, that's why I was saying about be respectful of others, because I was going to make the distinction between just being blunt for the sake of being blunt and saying I don't care what other people think.
Well, it's what I think.
And that's fine. And you can also do it with a nod of respectfulness to somebody else.
Yeah, it doesn't open conversation at all.
Right. People don't have to agree, but they don't have to say, well, you're wrong. I think that's what goes on. I think we see that all over the place. You ramble off on social media about that, but we see people that if you don't have the same opinion, whether it's politics, religion, all these things that we're not going to get into, if you don't have the same opinion, it's, well, you're wrong, as opposed to, okay, cool, you have that opinion.
Right.
This is my opinion.
I don't see it that
Get
way.
on with life. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, you have to make decisions and move on, right? I can't be rethinking everything in my life all day, every day. It's like, I've kind of thought about that one enough, and I'm comfortable where I'm landed here. I'll just keep going on.
That would be exhausting.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. This is where Amy goes to meet a guy she's interviewing. He's a sports doctor, kind of a get-to-know-me type interview.
Tall.
Yeah, I know, right? Do you know who that was?
The basketball player.
It's LeBron James. He's kind of like the basketball player.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw one of his soda commercials.
Yeah. Do you follow sports?
Oh, my God. Sports? I love them.
Who are your favorite teams?
I like smaller teams, like not the big leagues. I like the Long Island Mediums, the Acorn Pine Cones.
I haven't heard
the
of that.
Fire Island Penguins. I like the Cincinnati Thunder Wizards.
You can stop.
The Orlando Blooms.
You can stop. You don't follow sports.
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about sports.
You know what? That's okay though. Don't be embarrassed. No, don't be embarrassed, because I actually didn't really follow sports until I got this job.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You have no idea what a huge relief that is. I was assigned this. This was not even my pitch.
Right. So you're doing the article on me?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I think they're kind of weird and it's just strange. Grown men wearing jerseys with another man's name on it. Like, are you in jail? Are you his bitch? It's just...
Right. Kind of like that one?
That's different because it's in a frame.
Again, hitting those stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
I personally, I was thinking about what do I like about sport? Okay. Why do I like them? And the only thing I watch religiously is the UFC, okay, which my wife completely does not understand. She doesn't.
I can get into the energy of it, but yeah.
But if you were to sit down and watch it, I mean, what do you think?
I think that it's amazing what they can get their bodies to do, and then some days, of course, I cringe when I see the hardcore hitting and stuff.
Oh yeah. But
I think it's kind of amazing the kind of shape that these people are in and what they can do, to their bodies.
Right. Yeah, and what they can endure.
What they can withstand. Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching it last night, and I would turn to my buddy and I said, "You know what? If someone accidentally bumps into the end of my nose, I'm like, ow!" ow, that really hurts, you know? and these guys are punching each other with their fists, right? And every time my wife walks through the living room, she says, I don't get this. You know, could we watch something else? And so I'm like, all right, you know, I watch another room or I wait, because she just doesn't get that competitive thing. And, you know, I think that's what Amy was speaking to here.
Well, and I thought it was funny on the relationship side of things. Like, I mean, I know you've been married for a long time, but I totally have been like Amy. You know, you meet somebody, you're a little interested, you're like, you want to impress
I like what you
them.
like.
So you just start saying anything you can to make them think that you understand what they're talking about.
Right.
You know, and then you go on 3 dates and they find out you know nothing about it.
Right. I think that came out of our last episode with Gone Girl. You know, how long does it take to get to really know somebody?
Yeah.
You know, or they keep letting down these guards and keep letting down these guards. And, you know, I think that's the movie style love, is where they have 0 guards up, right? Everything is completely 100% revealed and known, and yet you're still loved.
And they definitely do that in this movie, and I think we're going to get to that clip too. But what do you think about that idea, Courtney, about how long it takes to get to know somebody, you know, relationship-wise?
Okay, well, the real answer I have is I'm still getting to know myself. So how can someone get to know me when I'm not even done, right? So I'm going to keep changing and growing and developing. But the practical answer, like what do I really think, you know, before you know enough of somebody? Really 2 years at least, you know, especially if some of that you're living together, which I never did prior to marriage. I just got, you know, I went straight from a bunch of college roommates into a marriage. So I never really, you know, encountered that. But I don't know. That's what I would say. I think that a lot of times a year is a reasonable time. Like if people talk about dating or relationships, but if you're talking about really getting to know somebody, 2 to 5.
Right. You know, and as you were saying that, and I agree with you. I mean, like in the relationship stuff, I think a year is a good time to go, okay, well, have we had a real argument at this point? Have we had a real disagreement?
Right.
Whether it's like animated or not, but just have we disagreed? Have we let down our guard enough to say, hey, like this isn't what I want to be doing this weekend?
Yeah.
You know, or I don't want to go to your families, or whatever the case is. I don't want to watch UFC instead of tagging along, you know?
Right. I like that. Like sometimes my wife will ask me, hey, do you want to go to this party with me? I'm like, I don't really want to go. I will go if you want me to go, and I will be pleasant and have a good time. But do I want to go? No.
That takes a long time to get to in a relationship.
It does. Yes, it does.
That's not a first 6 month, maybe not even a first 9 month thing. That is really once you both are solid and understand who you are to each other, that people start doing that. And I'm sure there's going to be people listening that go, no, we do that right away, and I'm always open and honest.
Good for them.
And that's great. I just think on average, we have our guards up a little bit. And
absolutely. I wasn't always like that either. I mean, you know what I mean? I grew into that.
Oh, certainly. That's what I'm thinking. It grew in your relationship.
But it grew in me. It follows me around. It's not just this relationship.
Well, that's why when you were talking, side note, I giggled inside because when you're saying that, well, I'm always getting to know me. So I was picturing you and your wife having an argument, and you saying after all these years of marriage, like, you don't know me. Like
I don't even know me.
Teenager.
I surprise myself sometimes. I'm like, why did I do that? That's not me. It's not the me I want to be. It's not the me who I think I am. So I don't know why we're talking.
I think that the scene, though, was her saying whatever she could to try to impress this new guy that she thought was cute and was out of her league. And I think people do that also, the out of their league kind of perception that we have of other people. Mm-hmm. She walked into this big MD's office, and the sports guy, which, like I said, I totally would have related to that one. I would have been like, who? But I would have known his name though. But you know, I think we all do that to try to impress people when we first meet them. We put our best face on at least what we think it is and what we think they want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it would be interesting if someone said, I have no idea who that is. And the funny part is it is kind of out of her character, right? Mm-hmm. She's the person who speaks it how she sees it all the time. And
that's why you could tell it was very calculated in that she was like, great. Okay, well, I'm just going to be funny about it and make things up.
All right, so now we're moving on to, actually, this is kind of another kind of look at relationships.
I'm finally going to be a grandfather.
You're already a grandfather.
But not yet.
No, you were already a grandfather.
Alistair.
What's that?
Alistair.
What about him?
That's your grandson.
Alistair. No, I mean, Alistair's your stepchild and my step-grandkid, I guess, but I'm talking about your kid, our bloodlines.
Yeah.
I was the first person on my block to own a television set.
That's really not relevant right now, Norman. That's interesting. It's not relevant.
Come on, that's more like Tom's kid. It's Tom's kid who you help with.
Dad, you love Alistair.
I like Alistair. I care for him. I fear for him. I know what happens to a kid like that in the schoolyard. We had a kid like that, Stewie. We used to beat him mercilessly. Oh, some of the beatings I almost feel bad about.
You know, I'm noticing the pattern of it starts out like 2/3 normal, right? You know, and then they just start ramping it up and kicking it to the end. So, it's an interesting commentary on looking at families and how, I mean, you can look at it however you want, right? I mean, I think that there are definitely people in my life who fit what we would call family better than family members who I have.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. And I think it speaks of, this is one of those clashes in families that happens a lot of the times. Like the father has a different concept of what a family member is. So when the daughter is like, no, you are the grandfather of this stepchild of hers, he doesn't want to acknowledge it. And it's very hurtful for the daughter because she's pretty much raised that kid, but he won't say that that's his grandkid and really acknowledge it that way. And so I think we run into that a lot in families where people have different ideas, and it causes a lot of stress in those relationships when people voice those ideas. And that's what we were talking about before. The father can have that opinion, but had he just kind of kept it to himself and just hugged the kid and said, oh, well, that's great, you know, it would have been fine. But instead, the daughter gets hurt by him.
Right. And you know that if you guided them through this discussion and you committed about 20 minutes to them both fully expressing what they really, really, you know, in total, what they, you know, it's because you could say, yes, he's not my grandson. He's not my biological grandson. I don't consider, I think I love the kid. He's a great kid. I like spending time with him. I like this, and this about him. But when I think about, there's something different about if I knew my bloodline was out there, you know, in a man. It's just a way of looking at it. But if they could express it and say, but people don't. It starts to get tense. And then people kind of back away from the discussion because to define it, you both have to be very, very good at stepping carefully.
Right. Well, and back away. And then, as you said, even escalate the tension, right? When the dad had the opportunity to back away, and instead he just amped it up and then kind of like really made fun of the kid.
Right.
Yeah,
which
is not what the daughter needed. Yeah,
but that's what made it funny.
Exactly.
You know? That's why I like comedy way more than drama typically, because it tells it in such a you get to fill in a lot of the blanks. And that's what makes it funny, connecting the dots. And that's what I like. Because if you're preaching it at me, I'm like, I don't know that I agree with it to that extent. All right, now on to, oh my. This is going to be a really, really interesting one because it comments on dating relationships.
He's a good doctor, and he does a lot with Doctors Without Borders. He's a great guy.
I'm not saying he's not a good guy, but he's got about a month left before you give him the boot, right?
What does that mean?
He's a reaction from the muscle-bound knucklehead, so now you go for the nerdy brainiac. I know the way your pattern works, Aim. It's my pattern.
No, Dad, I really like him. And I want you to be nice to him, and I want you to take it seriously. Will you do that? I think we have a real shot.
That's great. You sound like a Lifetime movie. One of the happy ones, not the murder ones.
There it is again. The first 2/3 are how she's looking at relationships and how exactly what you said to open up this show, which is your parents' patterns oftentimes become your patterns.
Right. And so Dad is trying to say, hey, don't worry about this. He understands where this is going to go for her. And she's like, no, this is different. And it's that thing when you start to get into a relationship that you really go, okay, I get that this could be a little pattern that you think I'm in. But when your feelings start to feel differently, it can even be hard for other people to understand that you really believe that it feels different and that you really believe that you're in a better relationship or in something that's longer lasting. It's hard when people know you as the serial dater, which is what she was. She wasn't even a monogamous. She was just a serial dater.
Right.
She liked the thrill of the new guy.
Right.
Which is an interesting dynamic in relationships or in dating.
Yeah.
The thrill of the newness.
There's something to be said for that, right? It's a different kind of adrenaline. You know, she could be, training for a 10K or a half marathon or something like that instead. But this is what she chose is her adrenaline. Or she could have been taking up skiing, or I don't think bowling would do it, but maybe some other active sport.
Right. I remember many years ago now, it must be over a decade ago, like studies that were done to show that people do actually they can be behaviorally addicted to that rush of the new relationship. The amygdala lights up and in ways
you're the doctor. I don't know. I don't know what part of brain it is.
Don't quote me on it.
It's a part of the brain inside the skull, probably closer to the spinal cord.
It's where love shows up in the brain.
I don't know.
And that's the amygdala. And on the fMRI scans, they would the brain would light up with somebody they didn't even know, but doing something physically active and getting their juices flowing for them. They would be more attracted to them, and their adrenaline would be going off.
Is this going to be on the test?
No, I'm done writing tests. I don't teach anymore.
Oh, good. All right. It was interesting, though, because I get it. The fact that we can see brain chemistry now is amazing. Yeah. It changes the whole way that we can look at human behavior, and especially with medications and things like that. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, to be able to see emotions light up the brain is just, outstanding.
Yeah. Kind of like they did in one of our earlier films, Inside Out, where it's kind of like that. Maybe a little more technical, but conceptually. All right. So here we go. This is an interesting choice, and I've run into many families who make it, and I find it quite interesting.
Amy, he's great.
Yeah, where did you find him?
We work.
You two are really cute together. You two would have the most perfect babies.
I could just eat you up,
Yeah, it seems a little early for this kind of talk.
It's not.
If anything, it's late.
My life did not begin until I had kids. Your life has not begun.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy right now. So,
Aaron, do you want a family?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd like to have 2 kids by the time I'm 40, at least, right?
Oh yeah,
that's great.
2 is tight. It's tight.
If I were you, I would start thinking about having them as soon as possible.
just breathe. It's fine. Who wants to have kids?
Amy?
Like right now.
People talk about that.
Not really.
It's fine.
I don't know anyone that talks about that.
He's great. It's normal.
Well, we found something she's uncomfortable talking about.
And that scene is just, I think so many people that are in their 30s even in their 20s, if you are dating and are not in a long-term relationship, the minute your friends and your family decide you're old enough that you should be having a family, that conversation comes up at every party, I think, from there on out. The minute you bring somebody new around, they go, "Oh,
so is he the one?"
Kids?
Yeah.
Is he the one? And then the whole, your life has not begun since you don't have a baby. Oh my God! And of course, I have a lot of emotions around that because I don't. And in fact, I just participated in a whole online summit about the DINK and the MINK community, about double income, no kids, or my income, no kids, and all the projections that are made onto people that don't have kids, but you hear a lot of things.
Tell me about it. I'm staring 2 colleges in the face, right? I mean, I want to help as much as I can. And it's like, man, what I would do, my kid said that before. He said, if you don't have kids, you'd have a lot of money.
That's right.
I'd be like, yeah, you're right. It's just that chapter. If that chapter was ever going to happen in her life, it hasn't happened yet. Because that just presumes that you can't be happy without kids.
That's right. I mean, that's what the presumption is. And the presumption is that you have a lot of frivolous time on your hands, or that you don't have a sense of responsibility, or that you didn't plan well in life, or all sorts of things. And it's like, you know what? A lot of times people get to that age because they didn't want to have kids,
Right.
I mean, it's okay to not want that.
Yeah, but it's harder to find a social group, though, because we lost all our friends who didn't have kids, especially if they didn't like kids. It's like, well, we're home with kids. Can't go out.
Well, that happens, and I think it happens both ways, right? The people who don't have kids start looking for other couples that they can continue to socialize with, where that's not going to be the premise of like, okay, well, are you guys trying? Are you guys trying? And those conversations that happen. I remember going to a baby shower about 8 years ago, and there were 15 out of 20 of the women were pregnant. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't drink the same water they were drinking. Like, what is going on here?
It's almost like two tracks that are going away from at a Y, right? I
yes.
mean, like train tracks, just moving away at that direction.
Right, but I think though in building community, like so people that have kids find, typically you find new friends through your kids' parents and your friends' parents.
And Louis C.K. does a great bit on that where he says, now all my friends are just the parents of my kids' friends.
Yes.
And I did not choose these people.
Right.
And why do I have to talk to them? No.
Right. It's not based on anything other than you both produced a kid.
Right.
And maybe your kids both like soccer, so they're on the same soccer team. So here's where I go with that is that for myself, I've had to teach my friends that have kids that and I'm auntie to a few kids and I love them dearly, but I wasn't getting invited to the birthday parties. And I'm like, well, I want to buy the gifts. I want to go to the party just because I'm not going to be throwing those things for myself, and I didn't choose to do that for myself doesn't mean I don't want to be part of it. And once you kiteach them,
cool.
and then you get invited. And then of course, then I have a big budget for kitty presents and stuff. So, and it's fun to participate in that way. And then on the other side, the parents, the ones with the kids, it's good to kind of for them to check in and say, hey, let's all go out without the kids for a night, or let's go out. Do you mind if we bring the kids? And just, everybody kind of trying to keep the friendships going that they had established before all the kids came into the picture. But I think you definitely if you're a person who doesn't have kids, I think it's important to teach your friends how you want to be part of their kids' lives. It doesn't mean that I think the biggest assumption is that if we didn't choose to have kids, whether it was biological or didn't find the right person or whatever, the choice.
I know the recipe for children. So, if you need help there.
No. Thank you. I'm well schooled in the recipe.
Okay.
For
some other reason other than that.
In any case, you have to. Where were we?
Sorry,
going?
I totally derailed you. I was just waiting to get that joke in. All right. So all right. So at this point, let's turn this ship around, and here's what I was with you to all the different reasons people didn't want to have kids.
Right. So we were talking about the reasons, and I think one of the biggest projections that people make, and the last thing I'll say on this is that they assume that you don't like kids because you didn't have them. And that is almost all the time not true. There are a few people out there that just like, oh, I can't stand kids. But the majority of people who didn't have kids, don't not like them. They like kids. In fact, many people work with kids and
I'd like to have a pet lion. I just want to go visit it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, and it is. But although I don't know, kids. If you get in a kid's world, they're easy to like. If they're just around you, it's harder to like them because they're always interrupting. You know what I mean? But I found that if I could just throw myself into the kids' world for a few hours, which is half the time when I'm working with kids, I think that's half the value. Is sitting around in a room, just giving them undivided attention, and those conversations come up, and you talk about things while you're, playing checkers or, whatever. I don't play Candyland anymore, just so you know.
That game used to drive me nuts. I used to play that when I was a kid.
Yep, and Build a Better Mousetrap. I'm like, I'm not doing that. You can't choose that one. That's not we need to hide that game.
Mancala, do you know that one up there in Northern California?
Yes, is that the one where you flip them over? No, they go up and down this. Yep.
The marbles in the little wooden holes.
Yes.
I've been taught 10 million ways to play that.
Yeah.
I just sit down with the kid, whether they're 4 or whether they're 10 or 12, and I let them tell me how to play. I act like I don't know how to play because they always have different rules. And I'm like, whatever, kid, and we just play.
Yep. Oh, that's a rule? Okay. Then we'll do it that way.
Is that how we do it? Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So you just get it. But if you're trying to get something done, kids do become, a little obnoxious. But that's just my take.
Only because you have 2 of them in the house.
And I have their friends over all the time, and but if you just talk to them and hang out with them a little bit, they're kind of fun to be around. Okay. So back to awkward things that people say at parties. This was a great example of it, and I'm glad you pulled it or chose it.
Okay, I know where we're going.
Kim's great, man.
Oh, yeah.
She's really awesome.
Kim's the
She's
best.
great. Yeah, it's fine. I'm glad I finally got to meet her.
Yeah, and Amy's great, too, by the way. Like, I just love her, but keep her away from those pro athletes, you know?
Wait, what does that mean?
No, like, it was a joke, like, that she'd sleep with them.
I don't get the joke angle.
Well, no, not that she would, but those are the kinds of jokes she tells. Like I'm loose, I'm a whore, or whatever.
It's my girlfriend.
No, I know. It's not my joke. It's her. Those are the kind of jokes she tells, which I'm not, like, for at all.
So, that speaks to something really interesting about having vastly different personalities among different groups of people.
Well, yeah, and don't let your brother-in-law around your new boyfriend.
Well,
too
wait
soon.
a minute. Wait a minute. Let's back that one up a little bit. She definitely had what was wanting to change her personality, and that's kind of what we see in this. But, it's like, why is she so different? I mean, you know what I mean? Why is she so different between those two groups of people? Why isn't she relatively consistent from group of person to group of person?
What? In this one, she
had shielded her values and her beliefs from her date.
Well, she's not going to say, hey, I like to sleep with a lot of guys because it doesn't matter to her.
All right. Well,
but I just thought, man, if my brother ever came to a party and said something that awkward, I'd be like, oh, he's not coming to any more parties. I think
you know what it is? It's he's not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Right? You're not drinking my Kool-Aid anymore.
Right.
You're on the other team.
Plan.
Yeah, you're out. You're out.
Yeah.
If I was in the mob, I'd have you whacked. Yeah, I get it. So, all right, well, that's why we see things differently. Okay, so speaking of seeing things differently, I didn't know where you wanted me to cut this clip off, so I just let it run.
The game is skeletons in the closet. Okay. All have to admit things we've never told anyone before.
No, Wendy.
I'm already We have to do it. Okay. Sometimes, after Kyle falls asleep, I get up and eat Skinny Cow ice cream pops.
No, you don't. You should be asleep.
I know. Sometimes I have the whole box.
What?
Guys,
That's like a whole regular size ice cream if you eat the whole box.
I know. Your turn.
Okay, last week I let my 6-year-old watch Glee.
I know.
Too soon.
No, I know.
That's just very racy.
There were some homosexual undertones, I will say that. There were 2 girls kissing in this episode. And I haven't even explained to them what gay people are.
They're people?
Yeah. Okay. Amy, your turn.
I don't know how I'm going to follow these. They were so good. You guys are really brave. Thanks for trusting. One time, I had sex with this guy, and we couldn't find the condom. So 3 days later, I found out it was attached to my cervix. It had been kind of pounded up there. And so I Googled, what do I do, right? So it said just kind of bear down, and just fish it out.
So I beeped cervix intentionally just for comic purposes.
Okay, because I was like, are we not allowed to say cervix?
Of course.
What?
No, I did. That was my own little bit of editing comedy there. So
it worked. I thought it was funny.
I do groups with parents from CPS. And one of the things I say to them is, I really like doing this group because they're they've just had their children detained, okay, maybe within the past couple months. And I do groups with them. And one of the things I say is I like sitting in this group because this group shares from their heart their real experiences, who they really are, what they're really struggling with. Now, not all of it, right? It would be inappropriate to share their whole lives, but what they do share is honest as far as they know it, right? It's exactly how they see things. And I said, I sit down with lots of groups of people out there in the real world with my kids and family and running my own life that are nowhere near this level honest.
Oh, yeah. And a game like this, I mean, I just thought it was so funny because you get the range of people who will go like with the mundane of the ice cream to her with the pulling the condom out
hilarious.
of her. The woman at the end, we didn't hear, but there's one where the woman gets really graphic about what she did with her husband and his brother.
Yeah, I did stop there. That was where my limit was. Yeah,
I had to bring it there because it was funny. But you go to places and you never know what's going to come out of somebody's mouth.
Yep.
And sometimes, like calling it a game, like I think it's kind of a smart, it's strategic. You call something a game, and you say these are the rules. You have to follow them. People do, and they'll say the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, just think of like Truth or Dare when you were growing up, or even the spin the bottle. Like you end up kissing people and stuff, and because it's a rule, and people follow rules of the game. And so this I thought was just really funny. You call it, oh hey, there's this game. Let's talk about this, and people just say the craziest stuff.
Oh yeah,
and you see who has no boundaries.
Yeah,
on where they would self-censor.
And I do remember a study, and I didn't go to doctor in school, but I do remember a study.
I barely sound like I did.
Well, that's because I keep interrupting you. So one of the things that I remember was from a study. It was about how self-disclosure, the amount of self-disclosure that you throw at somebody influences how much they're going to disclose back to you. So they did a test at an airport, and there was like, they would sit down with a stranger and they would use either a high level of disclosure, like where they were really talking about overly personal stuff, right? And then a medium level, and then a mundane level, right? Just like, hello, where's the weather? How's the weather? How's your coffee? That type of thing, right? So, and they found that people that shot just below the middle, right around the middle, but just below the middle of self-disclosure when they were meeting somebody had the best reaction to getting the other person to respond based on the number of word count and things like that.
Oh yeah, I totally believe it. And like I totally want to drop in a nerdy psychological tidbit for people that if you want to look up, that one of the coolest tricks I think to use in therapy is called the Johari window. Do you know it?
Oh yeah, I know it to myself.
You do?
Yeah.
Johari?
I just said I'm known to myself.
Okay. So
and not known to others, right?
Yes.
It's very hard to do. I don't think we could even talk about it.
Well, I was just going to tell people.
Yeah, you have to look it up. It's visual.
It was designed by a guy named Joe, a guy named Harry, and they put it together, the Johari window, and it's about using your own self-disclosure to get movement in someone else. So it's kind of just training you to do what that experiment did in the clinical setting. But it's a wonderful tool, and you're not being false with your clients. In fact, you become even more real to them because you're letting down that guard of the blank slate as the therapist. So if anybody's interested, go look up Johari window, Johari, I think.
That's
Might
what
have
I think it is.
two R's,
I agree.
But,
no, I agree with just one.
And just Google that, and you'll find an interesting little grid on the way to self-disclose and how you will what you would get back from that, the movement that you could see.
Does it suggest they use the word cervix?
They don't say to block it out.
Oh, okay.
They say to bleep it out. They say
I didn't know.
Big word.
It is. Is that medical?
I know if my client needed me to use the word cervix, I would use it instead of going my bleep, but I probably wouldn't talk to
I don't even know what's a word you could put in its place. You know what I mean? There's not many synonyms for cervix.
No.
All right.
Certainly not in therapy.
No. Okay. Now, this one's going to be our last clip, and it ends sadly where, of course, things end when we're following the life and death of her father, her last days. And, it's our last clip on the show today. I'm at Quadfather MFT, and Colleen, you are?
I'm at Dr. Colleen Mullen on Twitter. You can find both of us. We're also at Shrink to Shrink.
Yeah. That's right.
2. Yes, we are Shrink to Shrink here.
I do get those alerts.
And if anybody's interested, we both have the Quadcast is your show, Courtney, and my regular podcast is the Coaching Through Chaos show. And that's a self-help show. So people can go to coachingthroughchaos.com or to chaos.tips/iTunes and find all sorts of helpful interviews with authors and experts that are designed to motivate, empower, and inspire everybody.
And we're just silly. So this one takes us right into, the grief process. So I think they discuss in this clip how long her dad has been passed away, and this is Amy talking to her. Even if you thought Amy was brash, her boss was 10 times as brash as she was. So here she is talking to her at work after her dad's death.
Hey.
How's it going, sweetheart?
I'm getting by. Thank you for coming the other day. It was really nice. I can't believe he's gone. I'm literally just sitting here waiting for him to call. It feels like a dream or something.
Are we still talking about this? That was 8 days ago. I'm over it. It was hard, but I'm over it.
All right.
Best way to grieve, don't do it.
Sure.
That's great advice.
I hope that works.
Do it.
Yeah, just decide not to. I don't miss him anymore. I don't even think about him. What? And again, all it does is it takes what people either feel is coming at them or what people are actually thinking but not expressing, and gives it language by totally exposing it and turning it inside out. It's like, oh, just get over it. I mean, why not? And that's what people usually think when they're talking about their grief, or sometimes we do wish that would happen, right? I wish that they would come to this resolution where it wasn't eating them alive, because I am kind of tired of hearing about it. It would be nice. Change the topic. I've known people who are going through divorces, and this is not in therapy, this is in real life, and they're like, they're not my friends. Actually, they're my wife's friends. They come over and they keep talking about it.
Included.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not just going to talk for hours about your custody and your ex. I mean, I'm like, so I extricate myself.
You go watch UFC.
I come in. I say, honey, you know what? Emergency podcast. I'll be right back. It'll be about an hour and a half, and I'm going to be in the den. Please do not disturb. I won't be answering texts. No. So, no, it works like that. I don't use it like that, though.
Right. But the point that you're making is that sometimes, and this boss is just 10 times, more straightforward than anybody else in the show. And it's so exaggerated, but it's this caricature of, what sometimes we might wish we could say. Right. So the next time your wife's friends come over and they're talking about their divorce, that you'd want to be like, shut up.
Right.
Just like, let's talk about
It's been 2 months
how
already.
The grass is growing. That would be more interesting at this point.
Right.
So,
which realistically is the part of the problem, is that they choose to keep talking about it. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, just you perpetuate it. It's like, why is it taking this much of your I call it RAM. Right? How much your random access memory, that we have walking around in our heads to go back to our... Look, I'm going to reference every single other episode, our Ex Machina episode.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm going to turn our brains into a computer. I don't want to spend that much time using up my RAM on things that are awful about my life. I mean...
Right. I was talking to somebody this morning even about the energy it takes to put negative energy towards an ex. It takes so much more energy to feel negatively about them than it does to feel like kindness towards them, or to just think, even be neutral. Right. It takes a lot of energy to be negative, to be mean, to ruminate on things. Right. You could just be like, you know what? It is the past, and we're not going to minimize anybody's ugly
Yeah, especially when we're dealing with the death of a parent,
we're not going to minimize grief and all that stuff. But when we look at these examples, sometimes we just those are things when breakups are things that get people ruminating and talking about with their friends. Right. Deaths are things that keep people locked in a process that is.
And it is a process that's going to take years no matter what. It's just how that process goes for you.
So the funny part of this scene, obviously, it happened the week after she comes back to work, the funeral on Saturday, and she's at work on Monday, and this is when the scene is happening. Yeah, I mean, I think that not minimizing anybody's processes,
there are things that you can
there are things that you can do.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. That you can choose. There are things that you can choose. I know that people are tired of hearing themselves talk about it too. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're wearing out. But they don't know how to get off the treadmill.
Right, it's exhausting. Yeah. And, so if anybody needs to know, I'd say, the first thing you could do, go to your friend and like talk about their life. Say, how's your life? When they say, oh, but how are you doing? Because everybody wants to be sympathetic. You say, oh, I'm going to be fine. Like, how are you? I wanted to talk about you. Like, what's up with the kids? What's up with your job? What's up with your husband? You know, whatever. You know, just kind of like connect and project outside of you, because you need to get out of your head and kind of take a vacation from it.
I choose my friends much more carefully. Back in the early 20s through to maybe 30, 35, I had people in my life who I helped them. I talked to them. That's how I operated. You know, I was a counselor. And then after I was a counselor for a while, I'm like, I don't want friends who need counseling all the time.
I hear you.
So it totally changed the way I formatted my relationships. It's not like I did it planfully, but I could see the method to my madness that I wheeled around to, where it's like, that was not an exchange in a relationship. It's a one-way thing, you know. And I'm the thing that I was getting, I'm not getting, and you know, still love you, still, you know, we'll talk to you here and there. But you know, it's like just watching why people move in and out of my closer friends. So some of my friends are just, you know, are not the tent poles, that, you know, or the poles on the pier. They're just swimming around between the poles in the water, right? So they're in and out of my life and out around it, but they're not like stable people that I talk to regular. And it's funny watching how I've navigated that, you know, because sometimes, you know, I don't mind, you know, hanging out with people, and that's kind of what a relationship's about, right? I need to help you if you're in need, and you help me if I'm in need.
Reciprocal.
Right. If it's not a tug of war, I run out of juice.
Yeah, no, you don't want your friendships to drain you.
Right.
They should energize you.
Right.
You know, and of course, there's other ideas on where people get their energy from as far as in relationship, but certainly like an introvert would get their energy by, you know, taking a break from all their social stuff. But in any case, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, your friendships should be reciprocal, should feel like a give and take. They should feel balanced.
Well, an introvert and extrovert is not an either or. It's on a continuum, right?
I totally agree with that.
I'm shades of both at different times. So
I tell my friends I'm an introverted extrovert because I definitely enjoy the solo stuff, you know, a lot of time by myself, but I totally love the social things, and I try to connect with people on a regular basis.
Which probably helped you become a doctor, right? Because you stay focused and you're, you know, a lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of testing, and you know, you got to kind of go into that world.
Social life, right?
Yeah,
but then you keep having a social life too, so that I stayed like that kind of fueled me.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good balance. Thanks for teaching us, Doc.
Hey, you know, I do my best. Not really here, though.
No. We do we get about 80%, you know. Someone asked me the other day, I was doing a podcast, and they said, is that your real opinion as a therapist? I said, oh, hell no. That's my podcast opinion, you know?
Yeah.
There's so many pieces that go into actually looking at something. I can't give advice to unknown people on a podcast.
Right. No, we're given like, you know, occasionally if we hear a tip on this show, it's not.
Yeah, it's not for you.
It's not for you. It's not advice from your therapist.
No, it's not. That's our disclaimer.
In case we need to say that.
That's right.
Sometimes we might.
Should we date and timestamp this, Mark?
This is only for somewhat entertaining purposes.
Yeah, well, we entertain ourselves. That's the important part.
Yeah. Hey, and before we go, I forgot we didn't even say that we have a new website now. We have
it looks beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I've got a great virtual assistant, as they're called. So he's done a great job with the website. So people can check us out at shrink2shrink.com, and that is with the number 2 in the title there. And, you know, you'll see the blog, the show notes that go with the episodes. You'll find our little prequels that we did over at Quadcast, and our first official episode of where we talked about Gone Girl is already up there as well. And next week or so, we should be on iTunes. So this is a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah.
And check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll find us everywhere eventually.
Eventually, then you'll be sick of us.
Yeah.
And we will say thank you for that. We appreciate the listen.
All right. So next, we're going to be back next month. We haven't chosen our movie yet, but we'll let you know if you follow us at Shrink to Shrink for sure. So you can find out what movie to watch before this comes out. And,
I think people could also let us know what movies they'd like to hear about. That'd be a fun way of reaching out to us on Twitter. So you can at Shrink to Shrink on Twitter. just let us know movies that you'd like to hear us talk about.
Yeah, we probably won't do your suggestions. But,
But
send
we'd like
them our
to
way.
know what they are.
Yeah,
At least
exactly.
we'll know you're listening. People interact with us.
And even if you send it to us, I'll probably just make it my own idea and forget that you reminded me to watch them. I was going to think about that. No, we would give you credit, of course. So just say something to us. That's what we want. Just respond. We don't put this out there just because we like talking to each other. Oh, wait. Did I say that out loud? No, that is the best part of podcasting. You get to hang out with people who have similar interests and talk about subjects that you like to talk about. That's what I love about it. All right, so we will be back in 1 month on the last day of the month.
All right, well, Courtney, so our time is up for today, and we'll see everybody at our next session at the end of next month. Yes, a like and a rating is the only cost.
All right.
Okay, no insurance accepted here.